A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome once again to films I'm willing to talk about again. Yeah, so for the most part, I'd say things are indeed looking up in a whole different way. But you might recall in films I'm willing to talk about again, Season 1, which happened more than 2 years ago now, where I talked a bit about a Winnie the Pooh related film known as Pooh's Grand Adventure from 1997. Ever since then, people actually have been getting me some requests, mainly in the comment section of some videos, about where they want me to talk about some of the other Winnie the Pooh movies that have come out, especially after Grand Adventure became a success. Now, this is something I had not quite seen coming, because for the most part, a lot of these things are done on my own basis. But now that I have requests to do some of the other movies, I actually feel more than motivated to give these a try. And so, with some time that I've been able to spend with a few of the others, revisiting a lot of old memories that I've made over the years, well, I'll at least have one of them in line. Because keep in mind, there's been talks about a sequel for Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey. Because remember, by 2022, the copyrights for Winnie the Pooh itself had expired. And while Disney mainly does have a lot of control over the media related storylines, mainly through their own permissive ownership of the franchise, the Winnie the Pooh's true copyright holders, while they had unfortunately long since gone, the copyrights on the books and whatnot, and the original establishments of royalties have expired. And that's why we have Blood and Honey. And with all the talks about Mickey Mouse, Pinocchio, and whatnot also having their copyrights and royalties expired, it's only appropriate that I eventually get to tackle these kinds of drama. But I'm just getting started here. Yeah, I actually have Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey in my YouTube movies section. And wouldn't you know, I actually am more than looking forward to what the sequel could offer. A unique idea where Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and company take revenge on Christopher Robin for abandoning them out in the wild. The 100-acre wood, if you will. But, not to get sidetracked here, or possibly worse. To avoid getting sidetracked as a whole, what I'm going to do here is talk more about the other Winnie the Pooh films that came out since Grand Adventure. And well, what better way to get started than by talking about a movie that came out less than 3 years after Grand Adventure, the Tigger movie. Yep, that's right. You might be familiar with YouTuber Rockatar, whom a few months back he actually made a video all about this movie, claiming it as an emotional masterpiece. And just think about it. This was only days after my thyroiditis kicked in, almost sent me to the graveyard. Yeah, quite a dark period in my history. But in any case though, he does bring up a lot of good points in regards to all the things that have transpired in the movie. The colorful graphics, the nice high quality details, the watercolor backgrounds, the animation as a whole, the voice acting, including the narrator, John Hurt. Yep, John Hurt plays himself the narrator, in which this movie does open up on a somewhat live action note, eventually progressing towards the animation that Winnie the Pooh's known for, especially when Walt Disney Pictures had put their own Winnie the Pooh stuff together since the 1970s. But this was less than 30 years afterwards. This came out in February of 2000. I was less than a year old then, and this actually was one of the first movies I got on VHS. For the most part, the movie itself opens up on a positive note, claiming this as a Winnie the Pooh story, but Tigger comes out of nowhere, once again voiced by Jim Cummings, much like Winnie the Pooh himself. So, yeah, Cummings is still the man behind the voices of those characters, and likewise, Tigger still does play up the nice role, bouncing all around, and even causing the book to fall down, allowing the letters to scatter. He essentially is breaking the fourth wall to let us know this is not a Winnie the Pooh movie. It instead is going to go things differently. And it's nice that they were able to start off on a high whim, changing the title straight up from Winnie the Pooh to the Tigger movie. Yep, that's basically what it is. And as we dive into the book and feel welcomed into the 100-Acre Wood once again, the movie basically sets us up mainly as a Tigger movie, just as the title promises us. And what it is, it's mostly a little tale about Eeyore. Yeah. The sad donkey himself, whom, much like in Pooh's Grand Adventure, still does have himself the voice of Peter Cullen. Yep. Still voiced by Optimus Prime himself, as well as the other characters like Nikita Hopkins as Roo, John Fiedler as Piglet, Ken Sampson as Rabbit, Andre Stoika as Owl, and Kat Susi as Kanga, Roo's mother, basically. And like I said, Jim Cummings still does encompass the likes of Tigger and Winnie the Pooh himself. But in terms of how the plot goes, the story basically picks us up on the donkey named Eeyore, whom, like all the other times we've seen, was rather depressed. And the thing is, winter is on the way. And I guess the timing for the movie's release couldn't have been any better. But for the most part, Eeyore is supposed to have himself a winter house to protect him from the cold, the breeze, and possibly worse. Unfortunately, though, Tigger ends up causing a bit of a ruckus. He does end up inspiring Roo to actually be much like him. And much like what we saw in Grand Adventure, there are a good majority of different jokes that come around, musical moments, and plenty of other stuff. But compared to Grand Adventure, the Tigger movie does really pick up on a lot of different things. And some have even suggested that the jokes in this movie do carry over quite well to the 2011 Winnie the Pooh stuff that we had gotten since then. And I'd say that it is, in fact, quite related to that point. But while it's not the best way to express these sort of things, for the most part, I do have lots of memories of this movie. Lots of memories when I had it on VHS, and I rarely watched it on YouTube. Maybe small clips of it, especially with that epic final scene where an avalanche strikes a mountain. And Tigger and Roo are basically caught in the middle of it. They essentially make their way out of there by super jumping. Yeah, I bet you didn't notice that super jumping was apparently a thing within the movie, and Tigger himself made quite a bit of a fathomable claim. But all in all, the whole purpose of Tigger was to find family. He actually did feel quite depressed because he felt like he was the only one remaining of his own kind. And it was quite horrid enough that all of his friends decided to portray themselves as being Tigger's family and such, which I felt like was kind of mean to him. But it was an effort, basically, for them to try to make him feel welcomed again in 100-Acre Wood. He practically felt like he was alone, and all these things that had happened, in which that Eeyore's house construction was constantly being bashed and delayed, was because he felt like he didn't have much of his own. He, after all, didn't really feel like he was home. With family, that's just the thing, pretty much. Friends weren't really enough for him. And so, with them trying to pretend to be Tigger's family, I did feel pretty bad about the whole situation. Especially back then. It was one of those rare moments where crying in a movie seemed to come out quite well. And you know what? This whole movie really does give us a lot of big life lessons to work with. Much like what we heard in Pooh's Grand Adventure, which itself was kind of dark and even creepy at times, the way that it showed us this sort of ominous atmospheric range of all different sounds, all different obstacles, all different character dialogue, interactions, drama, suspense, etc. The Tigger movie does give off similar vibes, even though There was a lot of things different about this, contrary to a movie that came out less than 3 years prior. But I still do have some of the same big feelings about this. The understanding of morale, the understanding of family, and the major understandings of both working together in times of crisis, and of course, understanding that even if you don't have much family in life, you will always have others whom stand beside you in this whole not so great world. And quite frankly, that is for the best. So I feel like that after my most recent revisitation of this, and more importantly, my full analysis of Rocketar's video surrounding Tigger being an emotional masterpiece, while I practically can't call this a masterpiece, I can at least agree with a number of things. There were a lot of good lessons we were able to take from this, a lot of great moments in there, including the humor and musical segments, the unique animation that they put together for something that's less than 25 years old. I mean, the fact that it's gonna turn 25 next February, which is only months from now, so some would have probably wondered why I couldn't have just waited for that. Well, you know what? I probably will give it another full watch from beginning to end. Because like I said, a lot of my inspirations to create my own revisiting of this movie mostly came from Rocketar, as well as other critics whom have since talked a lot about this movie and claiming a lot of old memories that I've had, especially of my father, before we unfortunately had to go our separate ways. Granted, that was almost 20 years ago. But I still will never forget such big moments in history like this movie. It was definitely a big reason why I have a lot of morale in life. And while a lot of people I know are not at all good by any means, I will always have my respect, my honor, my esteem, my humility, and my fortitude. So with that in mind, I will gladly give this movie a good scoring, at least, of 7.6 out of 10.1. Like I said, it can't really be considered masterpiece worthy, but it still does owe a lot to us people today. It still has lots to work with, and it still entertains plenty of people I know. Some have even mentioned it to me, telling me that they might think it's one of the best Winnie the Pooh things ever. And while I truly feel like that Grand Adventure was what really got me going in the basis of Winnie the Pooh related films, this one definitely did a good job at centering less on Winnie the Pooh and more on another character in the franchise. But I do get the feeling that someday we ought to get more of these kind of films. Like, what if there was a movie surrounding Eeyore, or Owl, or Rabbit, or Piglet, or Kanga and Roo, or possibly anyone else. Even Christopher Robin had his own movie in 2018, although that was entirely different. But in any case, I will see you guys tomorrow, and of course, with more upcoming new releases in theaters, I do hope that I will get the chance to spend some time with the newer material at hand.
I want you, but I don't have you yet. I ain't got no tricks to be playing on